Hello and welcome back to Bookish, and welcome to what I think is the beginning of a Tagapalooza. I think I'm going to do 3 tags in a row, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday tags, because I was tagged twice, and I want to honor the people who tagged me. Thanks for tagging me. And then there's one tag out there that I've seen a lot of people do, and I really want to do, even though none of them tagged me. Sorry, I'm having a little Steve Donahue moment there. The first tag I want to do is the We Ain't Getting Younger book tag. This was a tag originated by Una over at the CodeX Cantina in honor of his partner in BookTube, Krypto's birthday. And so I wanted to do that, and I'm looking down a lot because I have the questions on my phone, and I was trying in an old manny kind of way, perfect for this tag, to remember how to get to where I'd left them. Also, in a really old man way, I'm going to read them off my phone because the tags are the tag prompts are funny, but they're kind of long. So here we go. By the way, Krypto is 40. I don't know if you've seen CodeX Cantina, but he don't look 40 to me. I have no idea how old Una is, but if you told me Una was 40, I probably wouldn't believe it either. Both those guys look a lot younger than that. So here we go. Prompt number 1. While it's proven too many birthdays can kill you, the amount of cake we can eat is still under debate. Name the most recent book that gave you a sugar high, or a sugar book high, I should say. Well, for me, a sugar book high is just a book that I can read quickly, that's just fun, that it's entertaining, but at the same time, it has a good plot, it has good pacing, and it has good writing. And in March, I read Elmore Leonard's Kill Shot as a part of March Mystery Madness. I haven't read nearly enough Elmore Leonard, but that kind of was a sugar high reading experience for me. I've had others, but I think in terms of just in terms of just pure kind of, carried along page after page, forgetting how many pages I'm reading or how long I've been reading, it's that one, and that's what I consider to be kind of a book high or a reading high. Prompt number 2 is sometimes we get older and wider instead of older and wiser. That's just rude. Name the longest book you've ever read. I think that would be Volume 1 of Remembrance of Things Past by Marcel Proust. My Volume 1 contains, it has Swan's Way and Within a Budding Grove in it, and I think that tops out at, if I don't include the synopsis or the addenda or the notes, tops out around 1,015 or 1,016 pages. Also, as aging your mind and memory goes, as you just had an example of there. Prompt number 3, the best part about pictures is that they're always a younger version of you. Name a book that you enjoyed more the first time you read it than the second. And then if you've never reread it, why? Well, that book would be Lord Fowl's Bane, a fantasy novel by Stephen R. Donaldson that I reread last summer as a part of a read-along with Steve Donahue and some other people. We were supposed to read all 6 of the books in the Thomas Covenant, the 2 trilogies about Thomas Covenant, The Unbeliever, and then I just weaseled out completely after the first trilogy because I was not enjoying that reading experience. And when you read as slow as I do, and you're as old as I am, you only have so much time to read books, and I just didn't think this was worthwhile. When I was in the 8th or 9th grade, I loved these books. I reread these books, I think, 2 or 3 times in high school before I was like a junior in high school, and I loved them. I reread this book now, and it was just really, really terrible. Most of it was awful, I thought. The dialogue, there's a really disturbing rape scene. Everything except for the battles were bad, I thought, and so I just didn't enjoy that reread. By the way, I love these books so much. When I was in the 9th grade, I got in a fight with a friend of mine who claimed that the 3rd book in the series, called The Power That Preserves, was anti-Christian because he thought in some ways it suggested there was a power other than God's. Yes, I actually got in a fight over, the relative anti-religiosity, is that a term, of a piece of fiction when I was in the 9th grade. Go figure. If you know anything about me, you would know I love to argue about all kinds of things. Prompt number 4 says, as you get older, you must learn to never skip a bathroom break before jumping in a car ride. Name a book that you read in very few sittings. And then, have you ever walked to the bathroom holding the book and then blindly fumbled for the door handle? The answer to that is no in terms of the bathroom. In terms of a book that I read quickly in just a few sittings, I think the most recent book that's true of, other than Kill Shot, would be The Inimitable Jeeves by P.G. Wodehouse. This is my first experience with the Jeeves and Wooster series. It's just delightful. Jeeves is incredibly smart. He's incredibly good at getting his boss out of trouble, and his boss is kind of his boss Bertie Wooster is kind of as goofy and gullible as he can be. And in some ways, I think these books are kind of like mystery novels. And each time you read, they're usually a series of stories, or at least this one was. And each time you read one of the stories, Bertie gets himself into some kind of jam, and then Jeeves has to get him out of it. Let's see. Prompt number 5 says, "Don't let old age get you down, because it's harder to get you back up these days." There is some truth in that. Name a book you put down early and why. That book I put down early was this history of Burundi called Burundi, Ethnic Conflict and Genocide by René Le Marchand. And I put this book down because I was right at the end of my kind of obsession about reading about Central Sub-Saharan Africa and all the political issues and things that went on primarily in and around the country formerly known as Zaire, and the genocide that took place in Rwanda. And I think I'd read, I want to say, without counting, I think I'd read 9 or 10 books kind of related to the subject. Burundi is a neighbor of Rwanda, and they've had their share of troubles, obviously, as well. And after reading 9 or 10 books about genocide and kind of all the horrors that have gone on in that part of Africa for really, now going on now, probably almost 200 years, I just couldn't face another one, and I've never gone back to this book, which is a shame. It's nothing against the book at all. It's just I was kind of burned out on the subject matter. Prompt number 7 says, "Age isn't how long you've been alive; it's how many lives you've lived. What book genres have you been wanting to try outside your comfort zone?" Well, this year I'd kind of pledged myself to reading outside my comfort zone. And last month I read, maybe it was this week. Anyway, I read a YA novel. That was something new for me. And my new genre that I really have never read in at all is horror. The only Stephen King I've read was the detective story he wrote about the guy who ran over people. I can't remember what that was called. Mr. Mercedes? Something like that. Anyway, that's the only Stephen King I've read. It doesn't really qualify as horror, and horror, other than Edgar Allan Poe, isn't really something I've ever spent any time reading. I'm going to correct that this year and read some books in that genre. Prompt number 7, it says, "Life gets worse the older you get. Lucky you don't have much left." I know this is intended to be humorous, but in all honesty, life does not get worse for everybody the older you get. In fact, I would just say, fellas, that my life has gotten better every day since I turned, 22. I think my life has been getting progressively better, if, filled with more naps. And maybe that's why my life's been getting better, because naps, that's not the reason. There are other reasons like, job fulfillment, wonderful wife, kids, dogs, etc. Anyway, so to get off that, the answer to that question is, the rest of that prompt is, name a book that slowly turned sour for you, but you finished anyway. Were you glad you stuck with it? That book is The Broom of the System by David Foster Wallace. This was his first novel, and it's the second and last David Foster Wallace that I read. I thought the premise of the book was somewhat clever, a little bit intriguing. I thought the same thing kind of about Infinite Jest, but as you go on through the book, you realize that in lots of ways the text is bloated, and it may be heavy on cutesy kind of ideas that seem clever and profound to you maybe when you're in your late 20s, mid to late 20s, but as you get older you realize it's just, well, to put it mildly. Just so much fluff and not a lot of actual substance. I finished the book. I was happy to finish the book. By the time I kind of realized I wasn't that into it, I was deeply invested, and I have a hard time bailing on a book once I get beyond 50 pages. So I finished it. I was happy to finish it because it just kind of reaffirmed what I'd already thought about the beginning of the book, and like I said, that convinced me not to read any other David Foster Wallace because I figured I had a pretty good idea of what he was up to after reading Infinite Jest and that book. Prompt 8 says, peer pressure seems to decrease as you get older. Where did all your friends go? Name a book that you checked out because of peer pressure, and were you happy to have tried it? Let's see. Peer pressure. BookTube exerts its own kind of peer pressure, and I guess the greatest peer pressure I feel is around Victober, because one of the real kind of holes in my reading life is reading Victorian literature, and I think Victober exerts the kind of peer pressure on me that that I like. So this year I reread Wuthering Heights. I wasn't all that glad because I really don't like the book any better. Next year I'm going to reread Jane Eyre, but it has introduced me to Elizabeth Gaskell. It's introduced me to Anthony Trollope. I plan on reading more Trollope this year for Victober. It's kind of got me into reading Dickens, which I've enjoyed. So I think it's kind of positive peer pressure there. I can't think of, I'm sure there is an example of a book that I picked up because of BookTube peer pressure that I'm sorry that I've read. I'll tell you one book I'm glad that back in the day, when I was younger and in college, I'm glad that I resisted peer pressure to read, and that is Bret Easton Ellis's American Psycho. No desire to read that. No interest in Ellis as a writer or in, you know, what is supposed to be kind of the satirical look at toxic masculinity and sexual violence. I have no interest in that. So I'm glad I was never peer pressured into doing that. And then prompt 8 is to tag widely, or to tag lots of people. Hey, so here's the thing. Una and Krypto tagged about 7,000 people to do this video, most of whom are people I would have tagged, and many people I would have tagged have already done this tag. So I'm going to tag one person, and that's Jason from Old Blues Chapter and Verse. Not Jason because I think you're old, but because I think you might have some interesting response to this prompt and to the whole idea of aging. Anyway, there you go. That is day 1 of Tagapalooza, and that was the We Ain't Getting Any Younger tag. Anyway, love to hear your comments in the comment section below, and as always, thank you for watching.